to get as much of this in the examiner's hand as fast as we can, because that is our first patent and we'd like it to approve. And then, you know what, leave the macro in this one, and then you've got a reason that you've got new matter in this one that doesn't conflict with your old matter.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I sat through with Doug, went through this with Chris Wheeler, my father, I heard all of those things, and then I'm hearing that that's not our strategy. So I just want to be very specific on this so that, you know, we get that completed in time. I know there's issues to timing, etc., that we don't want to waste. Now, I'm also confused of how we particularly predicted our date as well on when this was first exhibited. According to my last notes of when you guys were down here originally, we kind of went through a timeline, and that timeline's now been changed to September when in fact we felt it was more like April or something as the first commercial advances. And now Doug's talking to me about September dates, and I can list you 50 things that occurred before then that will be detrimental. As a matter of fact, the first one really being something like 8/10, which only gives us 6 days if my numbers are correct. You signed a license contract with Centrac to use and distribute your product. So that's well before 9/1. And these are some real critical things that depend on that date, if I'm not mistaken.
What contract?
Centrac license agreement was signed on 8/10.
The only thing we signed was a demo.
A demo license. Yeah, well, you were putting it up to commercialize on their site, on a public site.
But there was no charge.
But it's not a question of charge, according to Doug. Correct, Steve?
I need to have some facts.
Okay, we signed a demo to put up on a company's website, and we did our materials for public viewing so that they could identify customer response.
Oh. And when was this?
8/10.
Okay.
Now, there were conversations prior to that.
Well, the upside is we've got our application on file as of this past Wednesday.
Well, but what about changes?
We have to do it within a 1-year commercialization.
If we're not wrong, and I hate to preach to a lawyer, but that seems to be my understanding. So I'd like to get what is claimed in this one into Ray Joe's immediately. If not, you know, somehow sooner.
Well, hold on. Let him answer the question about commercialization. Would that be considered the first date of commercialization? Or a date of commercialization if there's not one prior to it?
There's not, but
It's, again, we have to start with the claimed invention. And this was zoom and pan imagery that we did for him. Okay. And the inquiry is whether or not...
oh, it's video too, B. We did.
Yeah, there was video too.
Sure.
The inquiry is whether or not the claimed invention was on sale more than 1 year before the filing date of the application.
This was a test program to determine feasibility.
Yeah, that actually works in our favor. The law has recognized sort of experimental use as sort of being sort of a mitigating factor in some types of public disclosure. Typically, if it's a commercialization use, or if it's to test the commercialization of the invention, they're less likely to find it to be
Well, then that's definitely what it was.
commercial use.
Yeah. Is there any difference, Steve, between or we signed an agreement to do that,
Okay.
but there was no public visibility for another month.
Okay.
So which date would be the reference date?
Would you call that a sale, that agreement?
No?
Okay. Were we ever paid anything by Centrac?
No.
No.
Never. Okay, that certainly works in our favor. If it wasn't an actual sale of your product. In that case, you look more at the public disclosure date.
September.
No, it was this date because whenever you put it up on the site publicly.
When did you put it up on the site publicly?
It was in September. It took us a while to get there.
Okay, well, no problem then, right?
But if that's the,
I don't know.
if that's the,
I'm hanging my hat on a lot of things right there.
if that's the date of reference, but that,
Well, you know what? I want to beat the 8-10 day of signing a license agreement because I don't know how that's going to be construed in court, nor do I care when I can beat it right now.
Well, let me ask the question again, Eliot. Do you think that the application that we filed on Wednesday does not provide enough information to enable somebody of ordinary skill in the art to practice or to make and use what we claimed in Claim 1?
I'd argue it doesn't.
Really?
I might, just simply because the actual deployment of it or employment of it does require the correct execution of those formulas. And other than there's one particular error that is very, very difficult to understand unless you've been part of Wednesday's conversation about the formulas. When you have to reverse engineer the formulas to find out that the square root in our definition is missing. Otherwise, you'll end up with target image areas of an enormous size and be totally lost. You'll end up just having a goofy result. So, I think it could be argued that you need to be able to apply the math to create the image. It could be argued that you can conceptually create what it is that we are conceptually defining, but it's more difficult to do that without a precise understanding of the relationships of target to subject images and viewing with this.
Well, let me turn it against you then, Jim. That's a good analysis. I think it's interesting. But let me turn it against you and say if that's true, then our August 2nd, 1999 filing doesn't provide enough disclosure to enable one of ordinary skill in the art to make this claim.
On Ray Joas?
Correct.
Yeah, that's why we want to change it before August
So
2nd.
you said the August 2nd filing. This is what we just did.
No, yeah, the March 3rd filing, you mean.
March 24th.
March 24th, whatever.
Well, I guess I'm going as early as I can, which is why we tried to file on Wednesday, which is why we filed on Wednesday, so that we could get the priority of a provisional application, which, if I recall, read very much like the March 2000 application.
So the one you're referring to is the original provisional from August of 99.
I got one that they
That we can, that if my argument holds, we have nothing of valid validity in that particular document.
No, what I'm telling you is that that document won't provide priority for this claim. In other words, our priority date will be Wednesday of this year, not Wednesday of last year. Or not.
Because that provisional didn't provide somebody over the art the ability to replicate what we do.
That's exactly right.
Isn't that the one we're looking for? Oh, no, that's the... No, I'm looking
Let me
for
ask you
the
this.
provisional this claims to.
Is it enough to say, and maybe I'll question my own logic now, is it enough to say that somebody understands that you create,
No, this is a separate package.
that the viewing window, that you create zoom and this create
Not the original
ability,
digital.
that to optimize
This one.
particular
But it refers to a provisional.
before, and all we did was help to clarify that optimization with this.
That day. Oh, right.
I think that's be convincing.
Okay.
You don't have to enable all ways of doing it. You just have to enable essentially one way of doing it.
Okay. Well, despite all this, I still want a firm yes or no.
Well, I think this is actually critically, we're really finally getting to the issues.
Well, yeah, we are.
Away from the rhetoric of accusations and
Okay, right.
fear-mongering and calling the investors, and I think we've gotten...
Well, we've got to deal with things. These are real fears, meaning we definitely have real issues. But looking beyond that, which is fine, I've got still an unanswered question. Does Ray Joa's set of claims change tomorrow, Monday, whatever, so that we can protect ourselves? Now, you've agreed that's a good strategy. Doug's agreed that's a good strategy, but yet I hear no execution strategy. And that's what I want to make 100% sure that I can get as much of what we've discovered into Ray's incompetent work, and I will call it that, as possible. and your work is far more superior. These are some issues, but there's issues. It's a large thing to grasp, and we'll get through it. But I want to change what Joe has done, and that was my understanding, is we are going to take the claims we've discovered in this application you just filed and put them into that one. And that the worst that's going to happen is the examiner will approve the earlier one of Ray, and yours will fall away, the second one.
Did somebody just join this call?
No.
Did you hear that beep, beep, beep?
I did. I did hear it, but I don't know if anyone joined.
Sai?
Maybe he got off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's do this, Eliot. Let's say that you're concerned about the August 10th date. Why don't we say that we will, make some amendments to the claims in the prior filing that you're referring to, and we'll clean that up as best we can, and we'll make sure that we have the claim amendment.
This is the one he filed.
That's the provisional.
That's the provisional?
Right.
Okay.
What about correcting the math in the one from 2 days ago?
Referring to.
Yeah, then, well, again, I don't know what was filed, so I guess
That was due on this date.
was, and it appears that I really need to consult with Doug on that.
Yeah, so if we're of the understanding that what we talked about today is what he filed, and I believe that's right,
Yeah.
then what do we do to correct that? And we should probably correct that by the 10th as well.
Okay. Right, that actually was more important where the 8-10 date comes in, because if these changes are considered to be better,
Right.
then we need to get a filing out by that date. Okay.
Okay, and Steve, just to remind you on this point, I did definitely, for a comfort level, is to keep accusations at bay, just a letter of what's occurred, what my risks are, and what our strategies for execution are on this filing relating to as well, fixing this one, as well as relating it to Ray Joe. If you could write that clearly to us, that gives us a lot of comfort level.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Hopefully what I explained today about priority will help.
Well, this gives it the final touch of, you can rest assured, I've got it in writing. That's what I need to comfort me, that I've got a strategy, that everybody's on the same page, so to speak, so that the page doesn't shift, so that we don't get off that strategy, we all stay focused on that one sheet.
Yeah.
So that would be critical. And what is our next due date? Is that on the 10th or the 8th or something, or am I missing?
Well, the only reason the 10th has any potential bearing is because that's when the test license was.
I'd like to beat that here on this claim set. Because if we can beat the 10th here on Ray Joe's filing, that's what we need to do there, right?
That's actually not an important date for Ray Joe's filing.
Yes, it is.
An important date for the filing that we...
No, it doesn't. It's the same date. Commercialization is commercialization, and how it relates is the same here to us.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I do.
Okay. So,
I'll make just one other general comment. Steve, everyone else knows this, but you don't, that I was just brought into this process Tuesday. It was the first time I've reviewed any patents. I've held them for Eliot in the past, but never reviewed them. And only surprised with what I found was that it was an extremely important.
but what is our next patent provision?
And at least to my understanding, we had very little time to get it right. And we're now paying the price, of course. And to the extent that that can be avoided in the future through careful planning of dates and contingencies, I suggest we have a plan for that.
Yep.
So, kind of an overall comment.
That's a good comment. I think it's important to get things done as early as possible. And, we certainly have tried to do that throughout the process.
Steve, can you do me one last favor?
Yeah.
Shoot over to Jim the 3 video patents we filed. He's signed a disclosure on it, the one you gave us,